Hi, good evening. Good evening, one and all, my lovely audience and attendees of Ray Talks. It's honor to host every Saturday Ray Talks with the global icons, leaders across the world on agri-value chain topics. Today, I have a very special guest all the way from Singapore, CS Liew. CS, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And
You're right.
across the globe, industry knows CS very well. But for me, it's an honor to talk to him on one-to-one. Ray Talks, next generation agriculture, hear from the leaders, and you will hear from CS today. Today's conversation is on mergers and acquisitions with a focus on agricultural BioAgri Inputs, how manufacturers and investors from developing countries such as India can get on to the act. Why this talk? It's because how do we evaluate BioAgri Inputs portfolio and decide positioning in the agri market based on global requirements? Going forward, how Indian companies can move swiftly and place themselves in a position of strength in the field of M&A as companies try to create opportunities to sustain and grow in the ever-changing market environment. Many large companies globally are expected to look for an acquisition in BioAgri Inputs. How registrations and market access issues and what it takes to overcome the image and market access issues. Let us understand the status and image of manufacturing of these developing countries. What investors are really looking for successful mergers and acquisitions in BioAgri Inputs. CS has painstakingly made a presentation for us to go through this in a formal way. Good thing about CS is he has saved me from introducing him in this talk, which he will do himself. Who can do better than himself? Since CS would be introducing himself in his presentation, let me talk to you about Ray Consulting. Ray Consulting, our mission is to help our clients make unique, sustainable, and significant improvements in their business performance to transform into a prodigious firm. We unlock insight to execute by challenging established thinking to drive transformation. We build the capabilities that enable organizations to achieve higher potential and sustainable growth. We solve our clients' toughest challenges by providing services in strategy, consulting, digital, technology, and operations. We develop outstanding leaders to deliver on commitments. I am Raj. I founded Ray Consulting after a long 2.5 decades in the agri industry. I work with all segments of agri value chain. If you would like to explore Indian agribusiness and in Southeast Asia, please feel free to connect with us for this engagement. Now, CS, after I spoke brief about Ray, and I will surely take you through your presentation. But before that, I'm tempted, I would like to speak to you about some of your personal passions.
Okay.
It's a very rare personality I have come across where combines so many things, multitasking, a juggler in various aspects. I'm sure you would love to answer my questions besides your professional answers.
Okay.
CS. When I spoke to you for the first time, you said CS stands for something else, not CS what you are known for. So I would like the audience to know from you what exactly you mean by CS.
Okay. All right. Yes, I'm known around the world as CS Liew. All right. And very often people ask me, what does CS stand for? And I will tell them it stands for caring and sharing. And that breaks the ice. That's my Chinese name is actually Cheng Sing. Yeah, but everybody calls me CS, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's something I have found with you in the West. Though I knew you as a person, as a professional for quite some time, but I think we started interacting only last few months, especially thanks to Ray Talks. You've been a regular, on my show and adding so much value. But when I spoke to you the first time, you did show that care, and then obviously you would love to share your knowledge with the world. That's something awesome. Very few people on this earth are there who would love to share. They would like to keep them close to their heart, their secrets. But you are one who would love to share because you believe in when you share, you get back. That's awesome. Now, CS, I've got 3 specific questions for you.
Okay.
I see on your social media that you shoot a lot of pictures. You are an excellent photographer.
Yes.
What makes you to take to that passion? Is it your hobby or is it a profession?
Yeah, it's a hobby. Photography, it's a hobby along with gardening and hosting parties, attending events, fashion shows, all the fun stuff. I have worked for nearly 40 years now in my career. So right now, when I travel, I mix business with pleasure. I own a very nice car called BMW i8, and this is the car.
Oh,
All right, it's a roadster BMW. I think you have a few of these in India as well. Not that many, but in any case, anybody that owns.
It's a limited edition.
Yeah, this has been in the market for 2 years, and this June they have terminated the production. So there's no more BMW i8s produced in the world, right? So this particular one that I have is one of 200, right? The first edition, right? And mine is car number 8 on the production line. So once you own this car, you belong to a club called IPO Impulse. It's a BMW organized club, and there are 4 people in Munich in the headquarters that do nothing but organize events around the world for BMW i8 owners. So in a given year, they would have maybe 30 something events, right? Mostly held in countries in which they have many i8 sold or many i8 owners, and you just have to get there, right? They have bespoke events that are organized. Some of them are driving events, okay? For people like me who live in Singapore, obviously we can't bring our cars, that far. So BMW would provide a few of these cars for those who are into the particular program or events, right? So I tend to go to some of these events, and then I have meetings, before or after the event. So like I said, mix pleasure with business, right?
Wow.
That's the way I do it.
That's awesome. And the second question, I mean, you love to host guests, especially at your house. How do you manage that? I mean, I see almost every day the guests are at your place. That's awesome. I mean, in India, we have a saying called Atithi Devo Bhava, means guest is the god. So you are practicing that. So how do you manage to host so many guests and such a high profile guests?
Yeah, right. So I have a garden, right, in my house, a swimming pool, and it's to me quite a nice setting. So for instance, last year February we had our company's 20th anniversary, and on that day I also hosted a one-day seminar between Indian manufacturers of AgChem and Chinese manufacturers of AgChem, trying to see if they could get together to do some joint venture manufacturing in India, because many factories are being closed down in China. So there are opportunities for them to go outside of China to try and get established, get themselves established. So I thought India has a lot of manufacturers with a lot of years of experience manufacturing ag chemicals. So I hosted that one-day seminar, and on that same day in the evening, I invited all the participants to my house to celebrate our 20th anniversary. So there was a nice time for everyone who came from India and China, right? So aside from that, of course, from time to time, as you mentioned, I also host dinners, for guests. Some are from overseas, some are local, including ambassadors and whatnot. And just recently, I hosted a dinner for the Costa Rican ambassador, the Korean ambassador, and some other high-profile individuals. And it's fun, to network and to interact, because a lot of them, are not meant for, having any business right away. But it's really a networking exercise, get acquainted with them and for them to get acquainted with me. So it's great, right, for business.
So you network with so many people. I think I network with you. That's enough.
Okay, absolutely. And I look forward to welcoming you to my garden.
I was about to say that my next trip to Singapore, I'm going to surely enjoy your hospitality.
Okay, sure.
Let's hope this lockdown ends so very soon, and we are all looking forward to go out of our places. And then CS, the third thing, you have variety of plants in your house, and I see that you tended them personally yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Again, passion for plants.
Yes, I have been a gardener for many, many years. And it was my dream, from when I was young to one day have my own garden. And about 12 years ago, my dream came true, so I bought this small plot of land and I built the house that I live in today about 12 years ago. And, I personally look after my own garden. And during the COVID period, since March 17, I haven't been traveling, although I used to travel a lot, maybe 60, 70% of the time. But in the last few months, I've been around, and every morning I go out to the garden and check all the plants and look at all the pests and diseases and see how to deal with it. And having the agronomic knowledge, pest management knowledge, that helps a lot. And it's really very satisfying to see the plants, growing very well. And, and of course, like you said, when I host events, I show guests around, the garden, and there's a lot of pleasure to be had from there.
And that's a secret of yourself keeping fit, because you're in the garden early in the morning, tendering plants, and then also fresh and smiling all the time.
Yes,
now, I'm through with my questions, which I wanted to know from you. Now, CS, you have been known in the world for, you're a career agriculturist, like most of us, traditionally. You have seen the world in many ways, right? From being working in a corporate after education, having your own ventures. Now you are getting into M&As, not getting into, we had a very successful venture. Now, please take us through your experience converting into this success. I have few questions on behalf of my audience to you.
Okay.
Now, let us know rather something about yourself, about Pacific Agri Science, and then today's topic, why the focus on biopesticides and biosolutions or BioAgri Inputs? What are the markets for biopesticides, biocontrol agents? What are the types of biopesticides and biocontrol agents? What are the registrations and market access issues across the globe, especially the smaller countries like India? And what are the low-hanging fruit markets versus sophisticated lucrative markets? The status and image of manufacturing of developing countries. That is a big challenge, CS. Like in India, the moment we hear the word bio, so many images come to your mind. So how do we overcome that? And then what investors are looking from this BioAgri Inputs investment, or when they want to take over companies, what do they look forward to, especially large organizations, if they have to buy out or if they want to invest into BioAgri Inputs, what is they looking? I have put all these questions, which I usually don't do to my other guests, because I put one question after the other. But since you have made an awesome presentation, I thought I'll take a back seat once you start your presentation. And if required, I'll pitch in between. Otherwise, I'll talk to you only at the end of your presentation without bothering to you. Okay. Now, all USCS, and over to you.
Sure, thank you. Thanks a lot, Raj. Thanks for inviting me to this event.
My pleasure.
Right, so I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation. So I will kick off with an introduction of myself, my background, and then my company before I talk about the focus on BioAgri Inputs, right? Okay. So like I said, we'll get into my background. I actually, I was born in Malaysia and I grew up there, and I had my primary and secondary education in Malaysia. Right? And then I finished in 1975 and I went to Iowa State University in the US and majored in agronomy and pest management. So I had a double degree. I started with agronomy in 1976. And then 77 was when there were 8 universities in the US that offered integrated pest management as a new major. So there are many courses that are, that overlap with the agronomy program. So I thought, why not sign up for that as well? So I do have a degree in pest management on top of agronomy. Okay. While I was in the US as a student, I did 2 summers of internships with a company called American Cyanamid, right, in 1977 and 1978. American Cyanamid today is part of BASF, right? Over the years, been absorbed into BASF. Okay, upon graduation in 1979, I went back to Malaysia and I got a job with Ciba-Geigy. Ciba-Geigy, of course, today is Syngenta, right? Ciba-Geigy is one of the parents of Syngenta, as we all know it. And I was there just for 1 year. And then I moved to Singapore in 1980 and worked for a company called Uniroyal Chemical. And Uniroyal today is part of UPL. Uniroyal became Chemtura. Chemtura got bought over by Arysta. Arysta then got bought over a couple of years ago by UPL of India. So that's how the industry has consolidated over the years, especially in the last 30 years, right? So like I said, then 1980, I moved to Singapore and worked for Uniroyal. And then 11 years later, I went to New Farm, and still based in Singapore. I looked after the Asia business for New Farm. And then 21 years ago, or 20 years ago, I formed my own company, Pacific Agri, right? And based here in Singapore, principally trading in generic pesticides that we source from India and China, mostly from China, right? And then, as I said earlier, last year we celebrated our 20th anniversary with a lot of guests from India and China, right? Basically, I founded the company 20 years ago to chart my own destiny, right? So here's just some pictures about my internships in Nebraska and Georgia. So the first summer I spent in a town called York, Nebraska, basically mixing, as you can see, new compounds, new pesticides that were synthesized in the lab, and they had to get them field tested. So I was assigned to help one of the R&D managers out there in Nebraska for that summer, right? So very exciting. You get to learn a lot of things firsthand that you will never be able to learn in the classroom. So it was a fantastic experience. I always tell people that the 6 months of internships I had in the field, was worth a lot more than the 2.5, 3 years I spent in the classroom.
Yes.
Okay, here are a couple of pictures. In 1978, when I had my second internship with American Scientific, and this time in Georgia in the South. So the picture here shows I was, up on a tractor-mounted sprayer over a cotton field because we were testing a lot of new compounds meant to be cotton insecticides. And then the other picture, spraying pre-emergent herbicide on the test plots, right? Pre-emergence, I think all of you know what it is, right? All right, then when I started working for Uniroyal, it was really thrilling to go to work in a private plane from Medan. I would fly from Singapore to Medan. Medan is the big city in Sumatra Island, which is part of Indonesia. And then from Medan, you had to take this company plane that will land on a grass landing strip in the rubber plantation, where we carved out a plot to have our own little research station there, testing all these new herbicides, insecticides coming from the US, right, from the Uniroyal labs. Right, so that's basically my beginning of my 40-year career in the agricultural chemical industry globally, but all based in Singapore, right? So now a little bit about my company, right? As I mentioned earlier, it was founded about 21 years ago now. Basically, we started trading in generic pesticides and specialty fertilizers, and then sourcing a lot of these products out of China and India and supplying to all our clients around the world, right? And we also represented specialty ag chem and fertilizer manufacturers. These are mostly SMEs, small to medium enterprises that do not have the resources to take their products globally simply because they don't have the market access, they don't know distributors outside their own territory. So this is where I come in to help them seek out these suitable distributors in the Asia Pacific region. Actually, aside from the Asia Pacific region, we do have a lot of contacts in the rest of the world too. I have contacts as far as South America, Latin America, Middle East, and South Africa as well. So, and of course in Europe too. Like I said, we marketed and distributed specialty ag chem and fertilizers. And here I just emphasize the Chinese market. Actually, we went to the Chinese market quite directly, taking some of these specialty products. So we do have considerable experience in penetrating the Chinese specialty fertilizer market way back in the, starting from the early 80s. And in the last 3.5 years, we have been engaged in mergers and acquisition deals globally, putting together buyers and sellers of companies in the ag inputs industry. So my focus is really in ag inputs, meaning agricultural chemicals, and specialty fertilizers, biostimulants, in that space, right? Here is a picture of me with the CCAB Agro and In Vivo deal that I put together 3.5 years ago. So In Vivo of France is a very large farmer cooperative. 3 out of 4 French farmers are members of the In Vivo cooperative group. And CCAB Agro, based in São Paulo, Brazil, is also a farmer cooperative. They are owned by 20 co-ops that are mainly in corn, cotton, and soybeans. And interestingly, the 20 co-ops that own CCAB Agro, in 1 year, they can use up to $2 billion of agricultural inputs. So it's a very big organization. So 3.5 years ago, I got in vivo of France to acquire a majority stake of CCAB Agro. So it's about $100 million deal, right? And sales of CCAB went up 3 times in 3 years after the deal. Basically, you know, in Brazil, the credit terms are very long. It could be 300 days or even a bit more, you know, before you get your money. So obviously, there's a lot of financing required, and there was a shortage of working capital for CCAB to grow. So it was a fantastic strategic match between in vivo of France and CCAB of Brazil, because one needed working capital and the other one has it. Yes. Right? One needed market access into the Brazilian market and the other one has it, CCAB has it. So it was a perfect match. So currently we have mandates to sell companies in Brazil, Paraguay, Holland, Australasia, Indonesia, and India. So as we speak, we are actively engaging buyers and sellers of companies, especially in the bio inputs space now, because there's a lot of focus. And today, like I said, we want to focus on BioAgri Inputs, right? Why BioAgri Inputs are really so much in the radar today, right? Right, so I will get into that now, you know, why the focus is on BioAgri Inputs. Right, the first factor is environmental and regulatory pressure on chemical products. So here I have 3 examples where I can show you that there's a lot of regulatory pressures, especially in the EU, trying to ban a lot of our very popular chemical pesticides in the next couple of years. There's something like 26 products that are earmarked for banning unless registrants in the EU can defend these 26 compounds, right? These 26 are listed as endocrine disruptors, so potentially could be causing cancer, right? So you can imagine the impact on agriculture for the farmers in the EU if a large number of these 26 are actually banned. And in your own country, Raj, India, there are also 27 chemical pesticides that are slated to be banned. Although
as of now, there is the draft notification.
Right. I think, you know, it's not very easy to say we want to ban all these chemical pesticides because there are really no immediate substitutes for all these products, right? So of course the pressure is there and the opportunities are there for many companies to come up with bio pesticides to replace some of these chemical pesticides, right, over the next 5 to 10 years, right? So here I just want to give you an example. You can see here French mayors to ban pesticides in the township. So this is very interesting. This news came up not that long ago in the New York Times, right? You know, this is not really legal, you know, for a mayor in a city to ban chemical pesticides, because chemical pesticides are regulated at a central body. You know, in India, you have CIB that's regulating it. In the US, you have EPA. In Australia, you have APVMA. So every country has a regulatory body that regulates what can be used and what can't be used. So a mayor cannot just unilaterally impose a ban on farmers around the town or village to use chemical pesticides. But then this mayor has gone ahead and he had got a lot of supporters, right? There are people who are against the usage of chemical pesticides supporting him, right? So I will show you another example, right? EU citizens. This is a group of people who are appealing to ban all chemical pesticides by 2035. which is not very long from now. You know, we are already in 2020. So in 15 years, they want to ban all chemical pesticides, which is impossible to do. But then again, you know, they are screaming and shouting every day. So day by day, they are gaining ground, and the regulatory bodies are responding. Consumers are responding. Consumers don't want chemical pesticide residues in their food. So then regulatory bodies have to take note, and they're putting pressure, like I said, with those 26 compounds that I mentioned earlier that are deemed to be endocrine disruptors or potentially causing cancer, right? So this is again another movement by this lobbying group to try and ban all chemical pesticides by 2030. So another one that I want to show you here is EU plans to reduce pesticides by 50%. Now this has nothing to do with that group of citizens or lobbying group that I mentioned earlier. The regulatory bodies in the EU themselves have a plan to reduce chemical pesticides usage by 50%, right? So again, you can see the pressure that is now being put on chemical pesticides, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so those are just examples I want to show you, right? And another factor that is that bodes well for ag bio inputs to replace chemical ones is the fact that there's more stringent food import and export standards that one needs to look at. You know, last year, Raj, in Delhi, I was one of the speakers in a conference where it was emphasized that India wants to double its exports of agricultural produce to the rest of the world. India is already a major exporter of a lot of agricultural commodities, but the government has put in a new emphasis and new focus on increasing or doubling in the next few years the amount of exports of agricultural produce.
That's actually linked to the doubling of farmers' income by 2022.
Yeah, right. And one of them, of course, is one of the initiatives is to export more, right? Grow more to export more food to the rest of the world. And when you look at exports, one thing you must focus on is chemical residue, right? So a lot of countries, not a lot, every country is still allowing farmers to use chemical pesticides, right? But then when it comes to importing food that is grown overseas into their countries, they become very strict, right? In terms of chemical residues, there's almost a zero tolerance on chemical residues. So for India to export, or any developing country for that matter, to try and export agricultural produce overseas, you just can't afford to have chemical residues, right? So that's why farmers in all these countries that are exporting agricultural produce trying to find biopesticide that can be used, especially in the second half, during the second half of the growing season, to try and reduce chemical residues, right? So this is one area that farmers need to look at, and therefore let's focus on biopesticides, right? So another factor is food and food security aspects, right? During the COVID period earlier this year, there were a lot of supermarket shelves in many countries that were barely stocked with the usual vegetables and whatnot. That's because of COVID disruption in the supply chain. So a lot of food importers, started to panic. So in the case of Singapore, our government has rolled out tens of millions of dollars to try and help local farmers to produce more, to avoid this kind of disruptions in the supply chain in any future pandemics. But in my opinion, it's very difficult because we don't have the land. So Singapore is not alone you have many Middle Eastern countries and many other food importers that have constraints in local production. So importation is still the key. And that's why I wrote this article, Food Security in Light of COVID-19. And it's published and circulated worldwide earlier this year, right? So food security is one aspect, but food safety is also a very important aspect. So even if countries decide to import more, going forward, they have to look at the safety aspects. In other words, like what I said earlier, your chemical residues in the food. So this aspect needs to be looked at as well, right? Which they are, and that's why more and more farmers are responding to that by trying to find suitable biopesticides that could replace some of these chemical ones, right? And finally, sustainable agricultural system, right? We need to produce more food going forward, no question about it. By 2050, we're looking at world population of about 10 billion people. And right now we are 7+, close to 8 billion. So in another 30 years or so, we're looking at 2 billion more people to feed. And we definitely need to produce more food going forward in the next 20 years. But then we cannot afford to destroy the environment, right? You just can't keep piling chemical fertilizers and chemical pesticides on top of what we're already using today. So that's why a lot of companies, a lot of distributors around the world are looking for BioAgri inputs rather than chemical ones, right? So that's why the focus, right? Now, you may ask what type of BioAgri inputs are already out there and what's the market like today, for BioAgri inputs. So let me get into some details here and show you, right? So this is a summary of what BioAgri inputs are. So you start off here on the left-hand side, biofertilizers and microbials, right? So these are nitrogen-fixing bacteria, for instance, and P2O5 or phosphorus solubilizing microorganisms and potassium mobilizers. So these are all microbials that are quite widely used already around the world, for these purposes. And then you have another category here, biostimulants. There's a major focus on that segment as well. And these are for stress management, abiotic stress management. And you have different types, amino acids, microbials, plant extracts, seaweed extracts, organic acids as well, right? So here are some examples, and you can study this in detail, right? Because you have the presentation here. I think Raj, you will upload on your website anyway my presentation. Yes. So the audience can spend a bit of time if they want more details, right, on this chart. And then you have the biocontrol products, right? So here I split that up between biopesticides and macroorganisms. But let's start with biopesticides. You have two types of biopesticides, in broad terms. You have the biochemicals. These are derived from plants, right? Extracts from plants. So again, I will show you a couple of examples. And then you have plant growth regulators, organic acids, and semiochems. And these are more pheromone type products. And then you have on the right-hand side here, microbials. These are your bacteria, fungi, protozoa, virus, yeast, and whatnot, right? So this is definitely a growing segment in the bio space. And macroorganisms, what are macroorganisms? These are the good insects that eat the bad ones, right? So let's take mites, for example. You have two spotted spider mites that suck the sap out of your crops, your plants, and then you have the predatory mites that do not suck sap of plants. Instead, they eat the bad mites that suck the sap. So this is also an area that is growing around the world, especially in developed countries, in using these microorganisms to try and control pests, especially insect pests, right? So in fact, our client in Vivo of France has a division within their corporation that actually cultivates these microorganisms and sell them, right? Okay, here's an example of a biochemical pesticide, right? So this is an insecticide, Sophora flavescens. It's actually a medicinal plant, and the extract is good for these sort of insect pests, aphids, mites, caterpillars. And here is another herbal plant. It's extracted from the root, this particular chemical, and it controls diseases, right, such as powdery mildew and gray mold. Okay, another biochemical input you can see here as a herbicide. Now, there are many bioinsecticides, fungicides around the world, but when it comes to bioherbicide, it's not easy to find, right? It's very difficult to find a bio solution to controlling weeds. But here we have one, right? This is derived from sunflowers, right? It's actually pelargonic acid, and it burns foliage, so it's very good as a burn down herbicide, right? And you have another example. Oh, wait a minute. And yeah, okay, let me talk about this microbial ones first. All right. So bacteria as a insecticide, right? Bacillus thuringiensis has been around for a long time, and it's basically for chewing worms rather than sucking ones. Then you have fungus such as trichoderma for controlling soil-borne diseases such as fusarium. And you have various extracts from bacteria and yeasts for control of leaf miners and nematodes. And yeah, back to bioherbicide, you have one from India, right? Ag Bio is a company in India, and Lakshmi is well known to me. He's the founder of the company.
Yeah, in fact, Lakshmi is attending this event. We'll have a chat at the end of your presentation. MD of AG Bio, Lakshmi Narayan is today's attending this event.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah, maybe he can shed some light, more light on this particular very interesting bioherbicide that he has, right? But I just give you a quick summary. The product is based on crude metabolites derived from specific fungal strains. So there are no living organisms in the final product, right? It's a cell-free culture filtrate, very safe and stable. It's an award-winning Indian technology. Like I said earlier, very rare to find bioherbicides. So really want to congratulate AG Bio and Lakshmi for coming up with this product.
Yes.
So what does it control? Basically, you know, these species, right? Water hyacinth, Parthenium, and lantana, right? So it controls both aquatic weeds and also lantana, which is not an aquatic weed, but very prevalent in several countries, such as Australia. Right? Right, now the microorganisms. This is maybe one that not many people are really aware of this, because it's mainly used now in developed countries, right? Because, you know, these rearing of these macroorganisms require special techniques. So not many people can get into this part of the business, but it's definitely a growing segment of biosolutions as well. So the first one here I want to mention is predatory mites, such as Phytocilius, which controls spider mites. which is a big problem in many crops, citrus, apples, and many other crops are often infested with spider mites. Okay, and many other predatory mites to control thrips and whiteflies as well. And certain wasps to control aphids, leaf miners, and caterpillars, right? And also certain nematodes to control soil insects. So you can see here, that these microorganisms are being used very effectively to control some of these common pests around. Okay, what's the market like? The current market in terms of biofertilizers, right? It's currently 1.5 billion US dollars worldwide, and this is going to grow to 3.1 billion by 2025 in the next 5 years or so, right? Biostimulants, another one that has double-digit compounded annual growth rate of 12.4%, right? It's $2.3 billion today, or around that, and it's going to grow to 4.6 billion by 2025. And biopesticides, right? Currently about $3.8 billion, and it's going to move to $8.5 billion, and with a compounded annual growth rate of 14.7%. And the microorganism right now is still quite small, $0.6 billion being consumed worldwide. And this is going to more than double by 2025 with a compounded annual growth rate of 14.9%. So these are the bio input segments that you can see that have all these very promising future, right? So I just want to focus, right, Raj?
That's a big opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. So at the bottom, you can see the projected compounded annual growth rate for chemical pesticides is only 2%. So you can see the bio ones are all going to have double-digit growth rates, right, compared to chemical ones. Chemical pesticides today are worth about 60 billion US dollars worldwide, but it's not going to experience very big growth going forward. In fact, as I presented earlier, if anything, many of them are going to be banned, right? So like I said, there's a lot of regulatory pressures on a lot of chemical pesticides. Right? Whereas the bio ones are welcome all over the world by regulatory bodies. Even in India, there's a lot of emphasis today by the government to try and reduce chemical pesticide inputs. Okay, so in terms of registrations and market access issues, we need to talk about this because even though we are projecting double-digit growth, but it's not an area that is very easy for a lot of producers, especially from developing countries such as China and India and many other countries that are producing some of these bio agricultural inputs. Right, so I am going to talk on these two segments, low-hanging fruit, low-end markets versus the high-hanging fruit or sophisticated and more lucrative markets. What are the characteristics that distinguish between the two groups of or the two markets, right? And what are the challenges you're going to face, right? So this is the chart that shows you what I want to say, right? So low-hanging fruit, these are your low-end markets. These are all developing countries. It's much easier and has a lower cost to register a bio pesticide input, right? They're a lot easier to enter, and therefore they are being flooded with a lot of products. So you're going to face a lot of competition, right? When you go into these less regulated markets, which also have a lot of spurious products, meaning fake products. They claim to be bio, but actually they are spiked with chemical pesticides, right? So this is a big no-no. If you're going to go to more developed markets, you are not allowed to do anything like spiking the bio inputs with chemical inputs, right? So these are the highly regulated markets, very lucrative. EU is a good example. It takes a few $million and a few years to register a biopesticide.
Yes.
So this is rather unfortunate, right? They are trying to ban chemical pesticides, but yet they're making it rather difficult for small to medium enterprises that are manufacturing bioag inputs to get into these markets. Yeah. Raj, you had a comment?
When it comes to low-hanging fruits,
yeah,
my worry is about that last point. The less regulated markets have spurious products. Now, how do you correct that perception?
How do you
correct that perception? Like for example, in India, though there is regulation in place, but when we hear about a product by name BioAgri Inputs, the perception is different about the genuinity.
Yeah, that's right. So, there are too many manufacturers that don't have genuine 100% bioag inputs, because bioag inputs, biological pesticides, for instance, they are not as robust as chemical ones, right? It takes a few more days for them to have the effect. And farmers have been very used to chemical inputs that have quick action. When you ask them to switch to bio ones, they find them not so effective, right? So then manufacturers of these bio inputs start to do fanciful things, like spiking them with some chemicals to stop action. So this is a really disaster, because it destroys the image of bioag inputs. They should actually spend more time to educate the farmers, right? To farmer meetings, dealership meetings.
True.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I will get into a bit more detail in the subsequent slides on what bioag input producer should do, to try and clean up this bad image out there in the marketplace.
Yes.
Right. So going back to the EU market, as I said, it's very lucrative, right? There's so much pressure, and I also mentioned on the table right now there are 26 major chemical pesticides that are slated to be banned unless they are defended over the next 2 years. So there's a lot of emphasis here, a lot of market potential for bioag inputs. But then it takes millions of dollars still. I mean, not as much as a chemical one to get registered, but still we're talking about $2 or $3 million to register one biopesticide in the EU, and it can take up to 4, 5, 6 years. So it's just too difficult, right? All right. So regulatory rules and mechanisms are also not yet well defined in most countries when it comes to regulating bioag inputs. But of course, in the next 1 or 2 years, many of these countries will come up with more specific rules that producers need to abide by and develop the dossiers to get their products registered. So it is coming along, but up to now, these rules are not very clearly defined, right? So, and another challenge is farmers generally, as I said earlier, do not know how to use bioag inputs effectively. Meaning there's really a lot of effort needed, right? Investments needed in sales and marketing to try to educate these farmers to switch from chemical ones to bio ones, right? So it's quite a challenge for a small to medium size bioag input producer to get their products into the global marketplace. Right. So what's the status and image of manufacturers of bioag inputs in developing countries such as India, right? So India and China and many other developing countries, of course, have been manufacturing, producing these products, right? Be it for the local markets or overseas markets. Now, almost all of them have problems accessing the highly regulated, sophisticated, and lucrative markets, simply because number one, the rules are not very clearly defined in terms of
Yes.
what is needed to get it registered. And then number two is that because they're not well defined, they tend to regulate them as if they're chemical pesticides. That makes it really difficult.
Yes.
It makes it a very big challenge in terms of trying to get these products registered, right? So a lot of them are facing problems, manufacturers, in trying to get into these more lucrative markets. And, the image of spurious products are out there, as we just mentioned a few minutes ago. And many of these products made in developing countries have too many claims. So when you claim that your product can do all these wonderful things, so many, increasing yield, killing pests, controlling diseases and whatnot, it's just not a good way to project, the image of these products in the marketplace. So there's this image of them being snake oil, right? Snake oil, as you know, can do wonders. Right? So manufacturers should try and restrain themselves and keep focus, right? What are the key selling points of your product? And in terms of efficacy, try and focus on what is defensible and what is, demonstrable, what can be proven. Just focus on that and not try to make too many claims, right? Now, no registration data, right? As I said, it costs a lot of money to develop the dossiers or registration data packages that are needed in many more developed countries. So this is a major challenge as well, right? And no marketing inputs. So a lot of manufacturers in developing countries are more focused on just trying to sell products, right? Rather than image and brand building, right? Because they are SMEs, small to medium enterprises, they just don't have a lot of financial resources to pour into image building and brand building. Okay, so this is where investors come in, right? Today's focus is on what investors are looking for. If you have a BioAgri input or biopesticide that you make and you want to go global, you want to expand your markets, you need a lot of financial resources. So this is a time maybe you can pitch and try and interest some of these investors. And Raj, you had something you wanted to say?
No, go ahead. I'm okay.
Okay, all right. So what it takes to overcome the image issue? Okay, first thing is investment in data and registration dossiers. As I said, it costs a lot of money, right? We all know that. For instance, in the EU, I mentioned earlier, it could be $2 or $3 million that you need to come up with. So this is where if you don't have the financial resources, you really need to find investors, right? Of course, you have to collaborate with global laboratories and research institutes in developing this data and registration dossiers, right? So it needs to be from reputable labs and research institutes when you generate the data, right? And investment in marketing inputs, as I say, farmers, dealers around the world are not very conversant when it comes to using BioAgri inputs. So you need to invest money in this area to try and educate them, to try to impart the knowledge on how to use BioAgri inputs more effectively. And then you have to seek out and collaborate with reputable and major distributors, right? So one key, this is a bit of a chicken and egg situation, right? So before you can find any major distributors, reputable distributors, you need to do all those things before you can get there, right? Before they're interested. Because the image, as I said, for products coming from developing countries are more or less, destroyed by a lot of manufacturers who are not very straight and honest, in getting their products out there as full biopesticide products, right? So this is a bit of a challenge, but if you can somehow, do all the right things, find good collaborators, it will give a big boost, to the image of your company as well as your production methods and your products, right? So this is one key area still to focus on, to find some reputable and major distributors to work with you, right? And of course, JV with players in highly regulated markets, right? If you are going to have a joint venture, that will again be very helpful in showing to distributors and dealers and farmers as well that you are having a major partner behind your product. So it gives a lot of good impression to the farmers and dealers and distributors, right? So try and look for some of these JV partners. Okay, so given the fact that most of the producers are SMEs, small to medium enterprises that don't have a lot of financial resources available in-house to spend on marketing inputs, spend on registration dossiers and whatnot. Yeah. So you, as I say, need to find investors, right? But what are the investors looking for, right? So you have to have these critical success factors. Unique and effective products. So has to be 100% bio, right? No spurious products. Once you can prove to investors that you have a very unique and effective product, and maybe even have patents. I think AG Bio, Lakshmi, later he's going to talk a little bit about his product. For what I know, he is already filing patents around key countries around the world. So that's very good, right? So if it is patentable, you can protect your intellectual property in a lot of these major markets. That's going to give you give him a lot of mileage, right? Okay, producers must have good reputation, right? And it needs to be pure bio input producers as well, because a lot of investors, they know about all the regulatory pressures on chemical pesticides. So they tend to look for producers that are pure bio producers rather than ones that have a mixture of chemical pesticides in the portfolio and then one or two bio pesticide products, right? So they will prefer companies that are pure bio pesticide producers. And you have to demonstrate.
CS, when you say they should be a pure bio product, so you mean to say they should not be having a background of chemical business?
Yeah, because when investors want to invest in a company, say they want to have 50% equity, right? Or they buy over 50% of the shares of your company, they will prefer that this company is dealing or manufacturing purely bio ones, right? Okay. So as opposed to, half the turnover now is in chemicals and then only part of it is in bio. So, investors tend to not like it so much. Yes. They prefer it to be, one that is 100% in BioAgri Inputs.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So your production facilities need to be very sophisticated, because to produce either plant extracts, biochemical ones, or botanical ones, or microbial ones, you need to be able to demonstrate to the investors that you have very good facilities that can produce these bioproducts consistently, right? In terms of purity, in terms of efficacy, right? So you need to have very good production facilities. And also, of course, good initial track records in the home markets and several other countries, preferably, right? So if you have proven the fact that your product has a market, good market offtake within your own home country, and also some overseas markets, that of course will give a lot of credibility to your company and your products, right, to investors. And the business that you have, of course, need to be able to go global, right? So it's not only having a dossier that's good for, say, China or India or your own home country market. You need to have facilities that allow you to go global, right? Have dossiers, registration dossiers that will allow you to go global, right? Okay, finally, concluding statements, right? BioAgri Inputs sector is growing rapidly. I've shown you, in a chart earlier or slide earlier, the double-digit growth going forward. And all this is underpinned by changing consumer preferences. Consumers are very concerned about chemical residues in the food, in what they eat. So food safety standards of importing countries are getting more and more stringent. So that's why I said earlier, India wants to double its exports in the next, 4 or 5 years, right? From, I think currently as big as $40 billion of agricultural produce from India exported, and government is taking the initiative to try and double this. So this is an area that everyone in the food chain, in the food production chain, needs to put a focus on. That you export more, you got to make sure that you don't have chemical residues in the food that you want to export. Okay, market access and growth has significant investments. We have gone through this. A lot of it is, registration issues, registration dossiers, marketing inputs, trying to teach the farmers how to use your products. So all require a lot of investments. And then attracting investors, right, require you to have those critical success factors that I mentioned earlier, right? Right, so Raj, this is what I have to say, all right, in terms of why the focus on BioAgri Inputs, in terms of where the market is going, globally, right, from chemical to more bio ones, right? So I'm happy to take questions if there are any, from yourself, Raj, as well as from the audience who have signed in for today's talk.
CS, wonderful is one word. Awesome.
Thank you.
You have taken us from, it's like ideation to execution. Most of us would not be knowing what's required to get into this field. And because we chose a topic on mergers and acquisition in relation to BioAgri Inputs, with that, you have set the standards of scale. What is required to get into it? It's not just getting into BioAgri Inputs because it is a lucrative business, because figures are going up. But someone is looking at a different aspect when someone has to put in its money. So what is they would be looking for? And when I started this session, I did have a lot of questions in my mind. I'm sure a lot of my audience also had a lot of questions, though we'll take questions. But it was like, FAQs, your presentation, your talk, your passion to speak about it has answered most of my questions. I'm sure the same is the case with the audience. But nevertheless, see, you can see already hands are going up from the audience to speak to you. And this is something unique about Ray Talks, that we not only we take questions from the Q&A and chat box, but also we ensure that audience have an opportunity to talk to you, because otherwise it's very difficult to get in touch and talk to a person like CS from this thing. So I don't have per se any question, frankly, because I think you answered all my questions, which I put in the beginning of my video. But nevertheless, we will take few questions from the audience, and I'm sure you would be loving to answer those questions. And something nice Ray Talks always had an extremely quality audience, a loyal audience. I'm thankful to them. Today, we have registrations from around 18 countries. You can see in the chat that, people are talking from Indonesia, from Philippines and stuff like that. So we are honored to have registrations from almost 30 countries. Today's registrations have been very high. Attendance is so good. So already questions are up, hands are going up. So CS will take the questions from the audience. I'll take in random who would talk to you. And as I mentioned, we have who's who from today. We have the CEOs, MDs from Indian corporates to speak to you. So let's take the questions from them and then we'll see how best we can get connected with them in the future. And since you have already mentioned your email ID here, I'm sure people to get in touch with you directly. I request them to please write a mail to CS, and I can assure you he's so prompt. At times, he answers in minutes. God knows how he manages so many things. As I mentioned in the beginning, he manages personal passions and he manages professional passions so very well, and he's successful in both the fields. So very rarely you get a person like him. So CS over to the audience for the questions. So I'll take each one of them.
Yeah, thank you. To the bio pesticide space. In fact, some of them are actually actively looking at acquisitions. I know because I'm in this industry, and I also interact with some of them. They are looking for acquisitions. They are looking to invest in companies that have technologies, that have good products in the bio space. So, in general, you can see, right, our chemical pesticide global consumption is about $60 billion US, $60 billion US. So when it comes to biopesticides, it's still very small. So that's why maybe you don't see them being very active. For instance, Bayer actually acquired, a bio fungicide business several years ago. So they are looking for acquisitions. They are investing, right? So it's just that it's still relatively small, the total consumption of biopesticides today compared to chemical pesticides. But then, as I said, there are lots of pressure now on chemical pesticides. So in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see bio pesticides growing to maybe over 10 billion US dollars, right?
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Sis. Now, I request Mr. Sharat Singhania to talk to CS.
Yeah. Hi, Raj. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thanks, CS. Thanks, Sharatji. I know you, but probably for the rest of the world,
yes.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Sharat Singhania. I'm the Senior Vice President at PJ Margo in Bangalore. We are the pioneers in manufacturing neem-based biopesticides and a lot of biofertilizers and biostimulants based in Bangalore. My question to you, CS, is today when we look at the regulatory systems, the data requirement for biopesticides or bioproducts almost is same as what data requirement is for the chemical products. And that's one of the reasons why people are shy in getting into the registration of bioproducts, because everyone knows the volumes are not going to be that high so as to give them the returns and give them the benefit after spending millions of dollars for registration of one molecule,
Right.
What is your opinion about that? Thank you.
Yeah, Sharat, actually, you have summarized it very well. The world, in terms of regulatory aspects, haven't really come up with, a regime that allows bioproducts to be registered more easily, right? Yes. Like I said earlier, in the EU, particularly in the EU, a lot of EU producers of biopesticides are also complaining. Every year I go to Switzerland, I go to Basel to attend the ABIM conference and trade show. Yes. This is all about bio, this particular conference. And everybody there is complaining, that is so difficult. The regulatory regime in the EU is not friendly at all to small producers of these BioAg inputs, right? So they always say, I think we better go to the EPA, go to the US. It's much more friendly to BioAg inputs. And of course, like I said earlier, Africa as well. I know firsthand, that there's some EU producers of these bio products that have gained quite a success in the African continent, simply because, like I said, they produce a lot of fresh produce for the EU markets, particularly in the winter time. And because the EU regulatory authorities are very stringent when it comes to chemical residues in the food that they import, a lot of these big farms in Africa are actually forced to use biopesticides. Like I said, particularly towards the second half of the growing season, right? So as to avoid any chemical residues. So, Sharat, I think you've got to look at where, like I said, the low-hanging fruits are, all right? The high-hanging fruit, the EU market, the Japanese markets are going to be more difficult, right? For smallish company with limited financial resources. So go to more developing countries, go to Africa, where there are lots of opportunities there in terms of farms needing and wanting to use BioAg inputs.
Yeah, that is right, CS. But the issue is ultimately these the developing countries don't have that kind of volumes which we really require,
Yeah, sure. That's why the high-hanging fruit, the EU, and
ultimately the produce from these low-hanging fruit countries go into the high-hanging fruit countries. But the same product goes there.
Yeah,
the food which is produced using the bio inputs registered in the African countries ultimately reach the shelves of the European supermarkets.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the irony. Of course, they analyze for chemical residues. So that's the focus, right? When it comes to BioAg inputs, supposing you use BT, which is a bacteria, they're not going to look for BT, on the fruit and vegetables.
One more concern, CS, is earlier we used to be checking the leftover residues in ppm labels. Now, because you have better instrument, they've started checking in ppb labels.
Yes.
When will it stop?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I said there's so much of pressure on chemical pesticides, right? And also the tolerance for residue is going lower and lower. And that's why the growth for bio products, right? Still, Sharat, bio is still the one that is going to grow, right? Yes, I've seen all the figures that I've presented, double-digit growth going forward, compared to 3% for chemical pesticides.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Sharatji. CS, Sharatji heads a company which is one of the oldest in neem-based products in India, called PJ Margo. Awesome, led by Mr. Jaipuria. I request Harsh to have a word with CS with a specific.
Yes, we know each other.
Yes, Harsh, introduce yourself.
Yeah,
good to see you. Good to hear you, rather. Yes.
Good to see you, Mr. Raj, and good to see you, Mr. Liew. And it's good to talk to you. I think we are talking after more than a year now. Yes. And I'd like to ask you a question, Mr. Liew. We've been evaluating adding biological products to our portfolio for a long time. But we are, continuously faced with a dilemma: how to identify a company that has a good portfolio in BioAg, maybe having proprietary technology. Because what I've met with several companies, and many of them claim to have either applied for patents. They claim that we have a unique strain or proprietary consortium of microbes. So it's very difficult to, segregate who are the genuine BioAg. this is, many claim that we have the patent applied for the patents, but not many are having actually patents granted to them. So in absence of such information, it becomes really challenging to invest in a company or commit to an organization. And the only way that I find is to do field trials, which is a long drawn process. You know that. So any thoughts on that from your side?
Yeah, Harsh, definitely. Yeah, there are startup companies in this space. They are companies already with some track record in the marketplace. Of course, then there are also companies that have gone beyond India or beyond their own country markets. So it all depends on at what stage they're at and what you're looking for. Obviously, at the startup stage, there's going to be more risk, right? Because like you said, it's not yet proven in the marketplace, even though they claim that they have filed patents, but the patents haven't been issued. So it's really at very early stage for these companies, right? So if you want to be more sure, you might have to look for companies that already have products in the market that you can check, in the last 2 years, 3 years, how have they been performing in the market? How are their sales and profitability, right? So these companies with some track record might appeal to you more, right, than the real startups, right? I would say the real startups would definitely attract a lot of risk, right? Because their products are not yet proven. Even patents, like you said, are not yet issued. But then again, by the time they have a good track record, by the time they have patents issued, by the time they already started exporting, obviously the valuation of the company would be much higher. So then if you were to participate in terms of an equity, in terms of some investments in these companies, you'll be expected to pay a lot more. So you just have to balance the two, higher risk, earlier stage or at startup stage, or somebody with a track record and you pay more, right? So that depends on your own risk appetite.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that, your views on that, and really engaging and talk today. And thank you, Raji, for organizing today's event.
Thank you.
Thanks, Harji, for joining us. CS, we had Ray Consulting conducts annually Agribusiness Summit and Agri Awards every year. Incidentally, because of pandemic this year, we had to move to sometime later. We were honored to have the group chairman of Dhanuka, Mr. Raj Agarwal, as the first lifetime achievement recipient of this award. And he made a wonderful speech during that time that how next generation should get involved into this business. Right. Wonderful. Thanks, Harsh. Thank you so much. I'll take quickly couple of questions more. Let me go to Sandeep Patel. Sandeep, can you introduce yourself and speak? He's been waiting for a long.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for allowing me to speak. And I want to know some fact from Liew. The bio industry all over world is growing up, and there are too many spurious items selling at a local level. So farmers are very much afraid to bring this product. Okay, that is a major concern for the real producers to their product. So, is there any mechanism or is there any means mode of standard growth means any panel is going on which can standardize the producing these biologicals all over the world? Means, like yeah.
Sandeep, before CS answers your question, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am Sandeep Patel and I am managing the whole agrochemical business in Agelis India Private Limited. which is a Belgium-based company, and we are into agriculture pesticide raw material dealing. We are supplying raw material to all over agriculture industry.
Thank you, sir. Yes, yes. Over to you.
Okay, yeah, basically in regard to all these spurious products that in the marketplace, it's just a reflection of the fact that I know you have rules and laws, but you also have to enforce, right? If you don't enforce these rules and regulations, that's when you have a lot of these spurious products continue to be sold in the marketplace. And that spoils the market, you know, for genuine producers of biopesticides and bio-ag inputs. So I think it really goes back to forming your own association, which I believe you have, I think in India, and also for those countries that don't have a bio-ag inputs association, they should actually form it and then lobby with the regulatory authorities to enforce, right? Because rules are already there, but you need to enforce. You have to have people go out in the field to the marketplace, to the dealer shops, and pull samples, analyze for chemical contamination or chemicals that are used to spike these biopesticide products, right? So, you know, just like chemical pesticides, there are also a lot of cheating in many countries. So you can see that the regulatory authorities do check, do go and sample from the dealer shelves. And then if they find that they are substandard, they get punished. So a lot of these bio ones need to undergo the same regime, same process. Right.
Thanks, Sandeep. Yeah, I'll take two more questions. Prakash Tilara.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Hi, CS and Raj.
Hi.
I can introduce myself as a Prakash Tilara, MD from Classic Chemicals. And we are biggest manufacturer of calcium polysulfide. Again, it is basically chemical, but approved for organic agriculture. And being a biotechnologist, I have certain questions regarding the biochemicals versus biological agents. See, as the CS already discussed that the farmers are not aware about the how to use biological agents, maybe fungi or bacteria or maybe some other nematodes or like living things. Can you think that the transition from chemical to biological agent would be go through biochemicals? Because see, the biochemicals have much higher efficacy in compared to the biological agents. They are safe and it is quite easy to use. It is similar to the usage pattern is similar to the chemical because basically they are chemicals. And I can particularly say they are the green chemicals. You can say a green chemistry. Right now, many fermentative products are there in the market. They are very safe for human beings. One of them is a spinosad, right? Spinosad is produced from the bacteria and then they are concentrating and then selling as a chemical. So do you think that the migration from chemical to biological products go through the biochemicals?
Okay. Yes, certainly. There are quite a number of products already out there in the marketplace. These are what we call botanicals, right? That classification, botanicals, meaning they are chemical extracts from plants, right? I mentioned two in my presentation, biochemicals that are used as biofungicide and bioinsecticide. Yeah, basically, yes, the farmers don't need to change practices. They just have to understand that these bio ones do not work as robustly as the chemical ones that they have been used to for many years. So yeah, it is a sort of a transition from bio or chemical to bio, right? But another, Prakash, another transition is when there are certain companies now that are putting out a combination of biochemical ones and the traditional chemical ones. So these are called hybrids. You know, this is another way to transition the farmers from pure chemical pesticide usage to bio ones, right? Okay, what's the advantage of this hybrid products where it is a combination of traditional chemical pesticides and biopesticides? The advantage, of course, is to reduce the chemical footprint, right? Instead of using 1 kilo per hectare of that chemical pesticide, you are now using half a kilo, right? And that half a kilo is replaced by some biopesticides, right? And therefore you reduce the potential for chemical residue, you reduce the chemical footprints on the ground, you reduce cost, because a lot of these chemical pesticides are more costly compared to bio ones, right? So there are certain advantages, right, of these hybrids. Plus, of course, your MRLs, you know, maximum residue limits, your ADIs, acceptable daily intakes of these chemical ones will be all reduced, right? Your pre-harvest interval is also reduced, you know, instead of not being able to harvest 1 week after the last spray, now maybe you can harvest even 4 days after the last spray, because you already reduced the amount of chemical pesticides in these hybrid products. So yes, you know, you need to have all these farmers have a way to transition from pure chemical pesticides to more bio ones. So those are the two methods that we can think of, you know, using to convince these farmers.
Yeah, thanks, Prakash.
Yes, thanks, Raj and CS, for your discussion.
Thanks.
And
Yeah.
I will be in contact with you, CS, personally for other questions. Being a time frame, I don't ask money question right now.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
You, Prakash.
Yeah, I'll take one last question from Mayur CS, then we'll close it with Lakshmi.
Okay.
Yeah, Mayur, can you introduce yourself and put a question to CS? Hi, Mayur. Hello. Mayur, you're unmute. You can talk, start talking. You're already unmuted. Please speak. Okay, looks there's some issue with him. Hi, Lakshmi. Say hi to CS and then.
Okay, hi CS.
Hi, Lakshmi.
Hi Raj, how are you?
I'm
Lakshmi.
good. I'm good.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, Lakshmi, of course, we both know you. Probably introduce yourself. And from my side, I would introduce Lakshmi. You know, CS, we have an association in India called BioAgri Inputs Producers Association, BIPA.
Right. Right.
And we are doing extremely good job in BioAgri Inputs on various circles. I've just posted on the chat that, you know, people can visit bipaindia.org to check for the details. And for memberships, they can write to me. Incidentally, I'm also the executive director of BIPA. And Lakshmi is the vice president of BIPA. He's a founding core member of BIPA. Hi, Lakshmi.
Hi. Thanks a lot, CS. Wonderful talk. It gives a lot of enthusiasm for the bio industry from India. My compliments to you on this.
Thank you.
Actually, I mean, Raj has cited on the BIPA. This is where we are trying to address the differentiation between fly-by-night operators in the bio and the quality-conscious companies and the memberships and other things we are controlling. We are not looking at numbers, we are looking at quality to take the bio-ag forward. That is my primary responsibility on behalf of the association as well as the Indian bio industry to say this. Then again, there were some of the questions which you have fairly answered. From the Indian context, I would like to add on, if you don't mind, with your permission. Now, basically, what is happening for the bio industry is basically the knowledge-based industry in agriculture or biopharmaceutical. This is doing a wonderful job. The problem in understanding the bio-ag in Indian context is because of the literacy issues, and it's a large country. This is a major problem what we are having. And as you know, in IT, India is really very good. In biotechnology also, India is going to focus everything into that in a great way. But I think it is a matter of time, the regulatory is not there in IT, so it could grow fast. The regulatory is too severe on bioag. It is very difficult to cross that and go forward. But the bio industry is doing very well. We have represented to the government and we have some kind of exemptions. Thankfully, biopesticides are looked at a very kind glove, and they are giving us a lot of support. I mean, they're no more, it is equivalent to the regulatory affairs of the chemical pesticides, because I mean, the basic tox data is enough to take the biopesticides forward with a temporary registration, and then we can go forward. But only thing is, we have something called as a 9(4) in India, which is a Me Too registration. That is coming at a very, very, very little price. I mean, it is not more than $100 you can apply. Whereas the biopesticides have to go for a separate data generation. There is nothing like a Me Too in this. So that is one area where we lack. So this is about it. And thanks a lot for talking about bioherbicides and AG Bio, our company. So this is, India is really now going ahead in protecting the technologies too. Like, I mean, not only patents, we are also owning the microbes, which is possible now. And we have done our total genome work so that we know our strain, wherever it is copied or anything, we will always can get to know whether this is copied or not. And again, the microbials, again, the question of percentage of performance, it is, if you give the microbe as microbe, they need the microenvironment. Our technology doesn't require the microenvironment because we're working with the biochemical eluted from the microbes. So it is as good as any other chemical moiety. So the performance is fairly good, more than 70–80% always, not less than any other chemical also. I mean, see, weedicides, bioherbicides, when we are using, within 2 hours, we can see the changes, physiological changes in the leaf. This is going to convince the farmer a little more better than using a low performing or low action bioag. This is what I wanted to say, and our protection levels are very good. Today, I'm happy to say that we have about 24 patents. Out of that, 3 patents are in hand from US, Australia, and Japan, which are very difficult countries to get. Then we also have at different stages, like I mean, more than 20 patents are already on the processing is done, and they are at grant and acceptance stage. Maybe another 3–4 months, we will be getting more than 10 to 12 patents. By 6 months, I think we'll get. And only one patent, which is still in progress, is only in Thailand. I don't know why. I think maybe because of some translation or something, it is getting unduly delayed because everything is applied once. But examination has just been completed now. That is the kind of a situation what is happening. And apart from the patents, what India is now learned is we are a signatory to the Nagoya Protocol. So we follow the Nagoya Protocol systems, and also the depositories where we deposit our own strains, where we can deposit with our regulatories, depositories under Budapest Protocol too. So we are in the COP countries. We will be protected in more than 70 countries on a mutual basis because of the governmental agreements are there, intergovernmental agreements. So this is, India is going to be the future strength, or I can say this is going to be a future power, superpower in bioag. That's what is my feeling. I mean, you're right in saying that 5 to 10 years is going to make a lot of difference. And recently we are seeing in AgroPages some of the reports that Indian bioag market or ag market in total is going to be about 24 billion, which is almost something like about 40% of the global ag market. I think there's a lot in store, and we need the people like you to guide the Indian industry so that we can achieve much better in a faster time.
True,
Thank you,
true.
serious on this.
Thanks, Lakshmi. I mean, I think you brought good insights from Indian point of view. That makes a lot of thing. Mayur, let us try once more. And in case if we can you unmute Mayur? Mayur Kankale, in case if you can join. Otherwise, we'll kind of yes. Yes, Mayur. Looks now, even now he has got some issue. Okay, fair enough. I mean, I think we need to thanks. Yes, I know 2 awesome hours. I hope you enjoyed talking to my audience. You know, this is something unique about Ray Talks. As I mentioned to you, this is the only globally what I call as an acclaimed talk show. Give me a minute, Mayur. Every Saturday, 4
Hi, Raj.
give me a minute, Mayur. Just hold on.
Yeah.
I'll allow you to speak once I finish this. And we have audiences as much as 30 countries. Today, you saw today in chat someone talking to you from, I mean, sending a message from Philippines and Indonesia and elsewhere in the world. And globally acclaimed leaders join us to, you know, India believes in learning. So you saw, you know, such senior people come to this talk to see that, you know, what is new happening as a learn. We do a lot of agri value chain programs. We had, you know, a second speaker from Singapore. I had earlier from Grow Asia, Paul Wautier, and then we had from the US, and then we have a lot of shows lined up. And we have also started a series called Agri Legends, you know, where Ram Kondina spoke to me earlier, and then we have got series of invitations happening almost, you know, next few weeks. So thank you so much. I'll come back to you again by summing up. Since Mayur is able to speak, we'll take quick question from Mayur.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, CS. Sorry, Raj, for the.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Hi, CS. Myself, Mayur Kankare. I'm an entomologist, and I'm currently working with Momentum Performance Material, which is a global leader in silicon adjuvant, as a application development scientist. And for a long time, I've worked with Beauveria bassiana and Meteorism and Isopply. And I found that we will not get the 100% efficacy of these biological molecules, because the many spores or the number of spore will not get dispersed on the targets. So my question is what's your outlook for use of adjuvants in the biocontrols?
Okay. Yeah, definitely. There's a place for these adjuvants, right? Even for bio ones. So long as you spray something on the leaves, you got to have something that will help whatever you are trying to spray, right? Be it chemicals or bio products. You got to spread it out on the leaf surface. You got to make it stick on the leaf surface. If the leaf surface is your target, right? Particularly these biochemical ones, you know, the plant extracts that we were talking about earlier, including neem, which is also biochemicals, right? So all these products will need to be properly applied onto leaf surfaces. And that's where surfactants, adjuvants also come into place. So it's not just extracting it from a plant and then diluting with water and spray it. You really still need, just like you have them in the chemical pesticides, you have to have some adjuvant surfactants added into these products. Right.
Yeah. Thank you, CS.
Thanks, Mayur. Hope Subhashish Bhattacharya is doing well. He had, we worked together in rallies. I mentored him in his initial years.
Yeah. Thanks, Saraj.
Yeah. Thanks, CS. And I'm happy, Mayur, you could put a question. So, what are your parting words, message to the audience? And this will be uploaded on YouTube soon.
Okay. Yeah. Certainly keep working on it. I know there are many producers and interested parties in India, aside from many other developing countries. I think everybody is quite aware of the future for BioAgri Inputs. So I mean, I just kind of in my presentation summarize it all for everyone, but I'm sure everyone is aware of all the regulatory pressures, maybe not as much in as detailed in my presentation, but certainly you're aware of that. So I would say keep working on the bio side while still maintaining a lot of the businesses that we have today in the chemical pesticide sphere, because it's not going to go away. In the next 10, 20 years, chemical pesticides will still be there, right? Any territory that is trying to ban chemical pesticides, outright in 10 years, in 15 years, is just not understanding that in the agricultural production that we have today, we're still very reliant on chemical pesticides, right? It will take time, another 10 or 20 years before bio can replace even half of what we use today in terms of chemical pesticides. So chemical pesticides here to stay, but the bio ones are definitely going to grow very rapidly going forward. So keep focusing on this major growth opportunity and growth area.
Great. Thanks, CS. And I also thank your secretary, Regina, for helping me out in this coordination of this presentation and making this happen. So see you, have a great weekend, and thanks for sparing. You must be feeling hungry already, so okay. Have your dinner now.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye, all the audience. And for all the updates, please visit our Facebook page, Ray Consulting, and LinkedIn page of Ray Consulting. And we'll be posting today's recording with CS in next couple of days on YouTube. That is YouTube/Ray Consulting. Please look forward to watch it there in case you have missed any part from this. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you so much. Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Thanks, CS. Thank you so much.